amidst the strife of storms, or a rock in the ocean amidst the raging of the waves.
Thank you. To me, I think once a judge gets his position, he would have to do something exceptionally egregious for me to impeach him. And I think that judges have a broad range of subjects that they must conquer. And I think if I would give them the benefit of the doubt in most cases. When it comes to a breathing and living document, I'm glad that the Constitution is such that, because if it was not, I would not have been able to go to a desegregated school. Because of Plessy versus Ferguson, they gave me that opportunity. Most women in here would not be able to vote had it not been for a progressive judge who changed that law. Nor would I have been able to get read my rights by the Miranda Act had it not been for a progressive court. And so I understand that court systems should be strong and they should be and be fair and give the right judgments. But there are certain times when the court must be malleable to the times. And I, for one, am very thankful that at those times that I was able to go to a desegregated school because of a malleable court system.
Thank you. I would support impeaching judges if they did not obey the Constitution. We read more and more every day where the people are voting for laws that are being overturned by judges. And I just think that is just not appropriate. I mean, why put it on the ballot? Why ask the people to vote for it if they don't care? Why not even put it on the ballot? But then they put it on the ballot, we vote for it in all states and say this is what we want to do, and then a judge overturns it. So I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Next question has to do with tort reform. And we'll begin with Mr. Mansfield and then work our way down, and then Mr. Meredith will finish up. In other countries, the loser pays in a lawsuit. In the U.S., it's very expensive to defend yourself against a lawsuit, but very inexpensive to sue. It's not uncommon to use a lawsuit to intimidate or to extort money from someone or a company owning assets. Lawyers like our system because it encourages lawsuits. When efforts are made to change to a loser pays system, they hide behind statements like, our system protects the poor and allows them to sue at very little or no expense. Sounds good to be the protector of the poor. The reality is this: if a poor person had a winnable complaint, the lawyer would take the case and be paid if he were successful. Those that fight against tort reform want to keep the system as it is, so as to give additional work and pay for lawyers, use a lawsuit to intimidate people to silence their complaint, use bogus lawsuits against corporations and individuals with deep pockets to extort money out of them. They know that many will pay to protect their reputation and their business. Are you for or against tort reform that would institute loser pays? Mr. Mansfield.
As a physician, obviously, medical tort reform comes up quite often, and which is also on my webpage. And in my last race, I was called a Republican because of it. But I believe that our judicial system has to be fair, first of all. It must be fair to the patient and the citizen. And it must do those things and make sure that it is fair to the patient and the citizen. But at the same time, it must be fair and fair to the business owner. And one of the things that I would like to do, particularly for medical tort reform, is that I want to make a board up where you would have 3 trial attorneys, you would have 3 physicians, and a retired Superior Court judge or Supreme Court judge. And every decision would go through them, and they would make a disposition on whether this was a case truly, or was this just a frivolous lawsuit. And based on that disposition, they would still be able to go to the court system. I believe as a country we should never limit the ability for someone to have a grievance, but we should always be able to challenge that grievance and make sure that that grievance is fair and rightly decided.
I am a believer that the loser pay system would work very well for us. Let me tell you a little something about my history with that. I lost my first wife to breast cancer, and I honestly believe that a part of the thing that shortened her life was a miscalculation by a physician that she saw. I could have chosen to go the route of having a malpractice lawsuit against the physician and possibly could have gotten an out-of-court settlement. But the decision was whether or not it was truly malpractice, whether the doctor was truly reckless. And I made the decision that he wasn't truly reckless, but he did make a bad decision. Too often, however, we find people who look for a way to use anything and any negative outcome to be a way to sue our physicians, and it's costing us a lot of money. And I think too many attorneys use it as a way to make extra money. If the attorney's the one, the suing attorney's the one that has to pay if he loses, we will then have, I think, lawsuits that are done because they have merit.
In answer to this question, I think that the loser pays system would be beneficial for our state. That's not the limit of what we should have in tort reform, though. There are other things as well. I believe that we need a limit on non-economic compensation, which is the pain and suffering portion of lawsuits. If I get run into down at the stoplight and I'm physically damaged and I can't work, the economic compensation, there's mathematical formulas to figure out how much I was making, et cetera, and I'm paid that based on actuarial tables. It's the pain and suffering which really jacks up a lot of costs. There's no limit on that. Texas is a good example. You can read it at the AMA website, my website, anywhere. They put a limit of, I believe it was $750,000 on the pain and suffering, the non-economic compensation. It did wonders for the state of Texas. Doctors flocked to Texas. It reduced health care costs, it reduced doctors' costs. It was a huge benefit. The only people it didn't help was trial lawyers because they made less money suing folks.
I would say yes to tort reform, and also my concern, and I shared this when we were at a different forum, is that 26 years ago, the doctor that delivered my Molly, that was the last baby he delivered. And the reason for that was he could not afford the insurance. He had one malpractice suit, and that took him out. And was he right or wrong in what happened? He had delivered an awful lot of babies prior to that one suit. So it concerns me that just how the suits come about, but most importantly, I think there needs to be a cap on the amount of money that can be requested. And I also think we need to take a close look at even the part that we're seeing a lot of now is the mediation. In other words, they'll have lawsuits and they mediate, and then our insurance rates go up because the decisions made between the attorneys. So again, if you check it out, most of anything that's happening right now is coming from a House that is, and Senate, that is saturated with lawyers who are making decisions that benefit them.
Before I go to that question, I'm going to jump back. The previous question was concerning judges legislating from the bench. Now, I can tell you, if an amendment passes the Constitution, that's what the judge should follow. I mean, I don't want you to be misled by some other words spoken up here that I am against any changes to the Constitution. I'm not. As long as it passes the states and becomes part of the Constitution, that's fine. But I don't want judges legislating from the bench. We've got to stop that. Number two, tort reform. John Szoka's right. When it passed in Texas, health insurance premiums went down 10%. Medical malpractice premiums went down 10%. But your question is, will I support loser pays? The answer is yes, I will. Now, I can't tell you we're going to be able to get it through. We're going to try. But I can tell you, if we can get tort reform, limit the non-economic damages to $250,000 plus inflation, then I think that will get rid of a lot of these frivolous lawsuits.
I do support loser pays. All of us have war stories that we've heard and horror stories about how people are sued. Gentleman pulls into the Waffle House, gets shot, and sues Waffle House because he said they should have more security out there. So then they have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend themselves. And like I said, y'all have all heard the war stories. We need to have loser pays. One of the biggest lobbies in Raleigh is the lawyers. Look at some of these campaign finance reports. Look at these political action committees, who they support and who they send their money to. It's all the people voting against tort reform, the people that are protecting them. They're making millions off of these cases. Thank you.
This next question has to do with local control of education, and we'll begin with Mr. Fowler. In the 1902 census records, 97% of U.S. citizens could read and write. Today, a full third of our young people are either illiterate or functionally illiterate. In New Zealand started a common sense program that calculated their standing from 17th in quality of education in industrialized nations to second in 2 years. The money allocated for schools was given to the local school districts on a per-pupil basis. All control over schools, personnel selection, teachers' pay, curriculum, everything was given to the local school board in each community. To serve on the school board, you had to have a child in school. Every community has talented individuals willing to serve, and what segment of our population could do a better job than our parents? Here's the question. If given the opportunity to get state and federal government out of our schools and have local control of education, would you vote for or against?
I would definitely vote for it, and I might take it even a step further. You can't get more local than the individual family. I believe that the money that goes out for education should follow the student where the family believes the student can be best served. We had somewhat of a start on educational reform here in North Carolina with the introduction of charter schools, which are still public schools but run under a charter granted by the state to private individuals to run the school. They were capped at 100. The state recently passed a law or directions for charter schools deciding what standards they must meet, and if not, they would lose their charter and have to close. If those same standards were used on our district schools and charter schools, we would have 164 schools in the state of North Carolina that would have to be shut down. 6 of those would be charter schools, 3 would be alternative district schools, and 155 would be the standard district schools. We need to restore our local communities and our parents to have the authority to figure out what's best for their children.
Question was, would I vote, if the opportunity was there, to get the state and federal government out of schools and let local school boards and parents be in charge of education? The answer to that is yes. I will tell you my honest opinion that I don't think that we'll be given that opportunity the way that the current system is structured. That doesn't mean that progress can't be made, however. It's kind of like the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time. There are things, there are bills that were proposed in the last session in Raleigh that were voted down in conference, lifting the cap on charter schools. There was a bill specifically that would have saved the state $54 million with the money following the child that would have benefited homeschoolers, would have benefited charter schools, would have benefited everyone. We could have saved $54 million. That was voted down. Things like that are good starts towards reassuming control of our schools for our children.
I'm going to take this a different way. I would, yes, I'm much in favor of local school boards being in charge of the money, but I can show you how that would work. I've been principal of Montclair Elementary School, Byrd High School, and Ashley Elementary School. When I went to Montclair Elementary School, the goal there was to make goal, become a school of distinction, and get everything up. Wrote a grant, got lots of money that we could use and target our school children. We made School of Distinction in 3 years, and that school continues to be successful. I went to Byrd High School when it was a low-performing high school. We wrote grants. We got additional funding. They let me spend it, site-based management. When I left Byrd High School, we were a high-growth high school. We also were a targeted or Title I high school because of 75% of my students there were on free and reduced lunch. At Ashley Elementary School, we have the same situation, but I've been given money that I can spend and use locally. And Ashley Elementary School met AYP and made high growth last year. What I'm telling you is if we have it and we can use it locally, then you'll see success.